So today's topic is called the body mind does not need enlightenment. Like when I heard the sentence, I don't know, I think a few weeks ago I was quite struck by it, because what usually happens is, like say, I don't know, when we're sort of on this path of self-improvement, that, or like, you see that in spirituality a lot, or even in yoga studios or whatever, people do, there's sort of this assumption that we, as a body and as a mind or thoughts, need to, I don't know, have some kind of big breakthrough in order to be happy, right? So, and it's not enough just to be happy, but the body needs to be fully enlightened. We need to have, I don't know, it feels like we have sort of this assumption that we have to have a very crystal clear mind, and it's sort of almost like in a way that, we have all sort of felt in trance at some point, and it feels like it's possible, to always have this kind of condition or this kind of feeling, that we have. And yeah, this statement struck me a lot, because at the end of the day, when you think about it, what the body needs is just a chair to sit, or maybe a drink, or maybe something to eat, and that's what the body usually looks for. Because I think the problem that exists sometimes is that we, as we said last time as well, that we take ourselves to be the body and the thoughts and the thinking, and that by nature, thoughts and thinking have some kind of condition, right? This body may have some cold, or it sneezes, or it feels tired, or whatever, right? So this body thing, it always has some condition. Sometimes it feels better, sometimes it feels worse. However, at the same time, it is born, so it can also die. And that's sort of one of the fears that we have, that it can die, right? But then, and the nature of thoughts and our mind is the same, right? We have some great thoughts, we have some negative thoughts, whatever. It always changes, also depends on which environment we are, what phase we are in our lives, and so on. And so on. So if we make our happiness or our joy or our peace dependent on those two elements, body and mind, we will by nature always be up and down. Sometimes the up is longer, sometimes it's lower, but that's the problem, the identification with the body-mind. So the solution to this is not to make, let's say, the body when you're sometimes in those spiritual circles, and I'm not judging it to be bad or good, but all I'm saying is sometimes when you're like even in a yoga studio or in certain spiritual circles, I'm not saying all, but certain, then it feels like, people, they pretend like, sort of their body is holy, and the way they speak, and they try to be very calm and very conscious, which is, as I said, neither good or bad, but it feels like almost as if, they're trying to become what they are through the body and the mind. For me, that's a confusion between the form and the formless. So as I said, if we realize, so the solution to this is to see, but really see that we are not that what we take ourselves to be, because it's already enough, right? Like how much time does it take to be what you already are? Like no time. And how much time does it take, to project yourself onto this body and mind? A lot of time. So the whole thing, and we observe this like in life in general. Let's start at birth. We're born, they say up to 1.5 years. Everything is fine. We don't have this self-centeredness that we speak about here, right? There's a certain self-centeredness that is established. So if it's not starting from birth, it means it's something that is created, and it's something that doesn't have to be there. But the thing is, what happens is the self-centeredness is created, and then let's say, they also say at birth, we don't even differentiate between other beings and this being, right? Because it's just one sort of flow. Like at some point, after a few months or years, depends, I don't know, I'm not an expert in babies, but at some point you realize, no, okay, there's something here and there's something here, so separation slowly comes in. And then, the more we come also in our thinking, the more we identify with thoughts, the more we basically realize that, you know, the separation becomes stronger and stronger because we focus so much more on the differences and not on similarities of what's there. So this self thing, and I think that's a very interesting point, you know, the nature of this selfing or self-centeredness, because, you know, we also realize when we take something very personally, the more we take things personal, somebody calls us idiot or asshole or whatever on the street, we take it very personal, and then we worry about it, you know. That's sort of also the first time when, you know, some girl in school, we're like in 5th grade or 4th grade, and she says, oh wow, I like the way you look today. You know, when we're thinking, oh my God, 5 hours we're gonna think about what does she mean? Does she mean this or that? And so on, you know. So there's this kind of weird thing happening where where this self-centeredness is getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And the nature of the self-centeredness or selfing is basically a claiming. It's first of all, it's an identification with this body. Identification with this body and identification with the thoughts. Because the system says the thoughts are about me, you know, like it's like we always have this Greek oracle in our head sort of saying, you know, you should hang out with these guys and then you land in prison, or you should go for this job, or, you know, there are so many thoughts coming through every day, all day, that bring us maybe to addictions, that bring us to, I don't know, things that we regret later and so on. But even that regretting and thinking about the future is part of the selfing, because that's sort of exactly the system that keeps this whole thing alive, is basically claiming. So before, as I said, there was just this, I don't know, floating through life as this body, but then as soon as the self-centeredness was born, and as soon as this self-centeredness started to happen, everything changed completely. And the more we grew up, the stronger. However, very important as well is the self-centeredness or self-thing is happening, right? So it's not something good or bad, because one of the big things is as well that many people say, oh, my ego, I need to get rid of my ego, I need to alter my ego, I need to do this and that. But that's not the point, because the solution to this is as simple as I said earlier, is to realize that we are not that selfing. So it's happening, but when we understand that there is a distance to this, it's very, very clear that this is not us. So like what we're doing here as well partly is to understand the pattern and the nature of this selfing, because that's basically what we're fully identified with, and that's how we perceive the world, how we perceive our relationships with our family, how we perceive relationships with our girlfriend and boyfriend, how we perceive relationships with any colleague, with anyone, because everything all of a sudden becomes very heavy, and we worry about the future, we regret the past and so on. So we really need to see what this thing is. It's almost like a parasite, you know, it's a parasite that took us over. And the problem is not the parasite, but the problem is that we take ourselves as the parasite. And I want to read something from this book here, which is exactly that. I told the story already once, I think, but I want to read this because for me this is exactly the point of what's happening. So this guy here, Paul Hederman, says, "You may not believe this, but there are plenty of examples in nature of how the parasite overrides the strongest instinct, self-preservation of the host. So there's a mushroom, I spoke about this mushroom before, from the cordyceps family that has a unique way of overcoming its handicap concerning reproduction. It has spores and it's in a stationary position, so it can't move, right? The mushroom is just standing there and it has a problem to reproduce because you cannot just walk up to another mushroom and say, hey, how are you doing? So yeah, it's in a stationary position where it can't deliver the spore where the spore is most likely to grow. Its degree of difficulty is extreme because it's basically relying on chance to succeed. It's probably hoping for some wind or for some storm and so on. So what it does is the spore from the mushroom, it targets an ant, a little ant, and burrows into the ant. So the spore goes into the ant, it checks into the brain of the ant and tells the ant where the mushroom wants to go. As soon as the ant arrives at the mushroom's destination, so that's amazing, that's happening in nature, right, every day. So as soon as the mushroom arrives at the destination of the other mushroom, the spore that's in the brain of the mushroom kills the ant, and then a mushroom grows out of the ant's head. It's amazing. That's happening in nature every day. Okay. And if we were the ant, now the analogy to who we are, okay? If we were the ant in the story, in self-centeredness, we would have a whole narration about the trip of the spore after it took us over. Meaning, like, so imagine, so let's say in this analogy we're the ant, and this spore from the mushroom is the selfing, meaning the self-centeredness. I'm this body. So not seeing that we're separate from the spore, like the ant suddenly identifies with the destination of the spore. So if I ask the ant, hey, where are you going? Like, why are you going this way? It's like, yeah, because I'm busy and I have to go there. Like, it's sort of, we take this as us, although it's not us, it's almost like, in a, like, it's so easy to identify with things for us. Like, for instance, if you watch a movie and people start crying, they're sitting in a movie theater and, we start crying. Why? It's not, like, the movie is just some images, but we start crying because it's so easy for us to identify with something. Or, I don't know, or like as I said last time, we play video games and we identify so strongly with the action figure that sometimes we smash the controllers on the floor because we lost a life in this game, or we lost a soccer game, whatever, so we have such a strong power of identifying that it feels like as if we are there in that moment, especially. Or do you know about this experiment where you have it's in psychology, an experiment, like, let's say you put your 2 hands on a table, and then they put like a hand made out of gum, like a mock-up, basically, an artificial hand made out of whatever, and it looks like a hand. They put it here and your right hand next to it, okay? So then what happens is, and you only see, and you don't, so basically that's how it happens. And then what they do is, somebody, like, they touch you, or like, okay, hold on. They hide your hand, and only this other hand is there, right? So you think like your both hands are there, but your one hand is hidden. So they start like touching your hand, and they start doing stuff, and at some point you feel like that this is your hand. And then all of a sudden what happens is, somebody comes with a hammer, and what you do is, you do this, Hi, come in.
I'm so sorry.
No worries. At some point, you do this because you think it's your hand. So that's insane. So all I'm saying is, it's so easy for us to identify with something that we're not. And that's what's happening all this time. So then it goes on. So we would be claiming every one of those spores, intentions, and actions coming through us as our own intentions and actions until we arrive at the destination. It's mushroom from then on out. So that's exactly, the insanity that's happening constantly here with us. We are like, basically there's a parasite in us, the self-centeredness, and I have identified with so strongly that we take basically, it's not taking responsibility, but we take ourselves to be something whose nature is self-centeredness, obviously, like, it does things that people don't like, it regrets things, it's always worried about that it looks good, and, it impresses other people, and all those things, and that's the insanity. That's like, identify with a parasite, with something we're not, and we always constantly have to defend this system. We have to, so imagine, so again, I think it's a very, very basic but very important thing. So basically, let's say we are whatever we are, then at some point, let's say as the mushroom, so we are we are the ant, a spore comes, or let's say talk about this, so we're something, right? So then this self-centeredness comes in, it's like, let's say this parasite, instead of saying, hey, there's this parasite, it's doing its thing, we say no. That's the best plan, the best way to screw oneself, because the parasite comes in, and then instead of saying, hey parasite, I can see you, you stay outside, we identify with it, and then it takes us over. It's like an insane system. why don't we see it? Because we're so stuck up in this parasite and everyone else around us that we don't see it. And we wonder why we're so unhappy, why we worry about the past, why we're so shy, why we do so many things. And you know, we always looking for relief because it's unbearable. Like the situation is unbearable as the parasite. And you know, the problem is not, as I said, then what happens is, as this parasite, we're trying to get relief. So we're trying to get, I don't know, we're trying to have a lot of vacation, we're trying to meditate, we're trying to do a lot of yoga. It's all relief, you know, basically on a insane system that we have started. You know, so instead of trying to get relief from our lives constantly, it's enough to just see what's happening. And that's, you know, that's sort of, that's much stronger, I find, you know, in my life, than trying to run behind something, not seeing what's happening, and trying to always sort of, I don't know, make everything fine sort of at the back end. You know, it's like, I don't know, it's like, let's say in a way, I don't know, people, plants, you know, or corporations, they just kill all the trees in the world, and then there's other people, you know, who basically plant trees because they're not enough. You know, it's like an insane thing in a way. But, you know, in this case, it's the same. So we don't see what's actually happening, what's driving us crazy, what's the problem, like all the problem, what causes all the problems in relationships, in our jobs, in what we want to do. Because we just don't see what's happening. And you know, I think this example, what I said about the mushroom, is very beautiful because it exactly shows about the self-centeredness. And you know how we can recognize this self-centeredness or selfing is basically, the nature of it is to claim everything. So it's to claim, you know, I have, I don't know, like you have a thought and you claim it's yours. And then this already brings so many things with it. Like it's basically, I don't know, you have opinion A, somebody else has opinion B, and you have to always stand up for your thoughts or like a position or something. I said there's nothing wrong with that because it's happening, but it's very exhausting to do all this. Or even just the idea, you know, like we spoke about, the body and the mind doesn't need enlightenment because I said we think we are this body and we are not happy as this body, and we are the form because we're so, in this analogy, we're so identified with this parasite that we're looking for salvation, we're looking for salvation as the parasite and not from the parasite. You see the difference? So the parasite will never have salvation. As I said, the body will age, it was born, it will die. If that's all we had, we would have to run around and be like, oh shit, like, you know, you wouldn't fly, you wouldn't jump out of the airplane, you know, you would probably be like, oh my God. But since we do all those crazy things in a way, there's something in us saying, you know, everything is fine, even after this body, something will go on or something, you know. So, but yeah, so basically, the nature of it, as I said, is the claiming. So we claim everything this body does, and you know, everything that happens in a way happens to us in a way. That's how we feel. You know, there's a sentence from Tony Robbins which says, life is not happening to you but for you. But I would go even a step further. So to you is like, oh, I'm a victim, or life is like, it sucks and so on. To you, for you means, wow, you know, life is happening and you can make the best out of it. But I would even go a step further, and life is just happening. It's not happening to you or for you, it's just happening. But, you know, we don't see that life is just happening because it's always like, you know, the self-centeredness is also a self-obsession. You know, how obsessed are we with sort of this thing? Imagine like you have, like somebody has a thought, somebody else has a thought, and they think, oh my God, like in 1 year I may have cancer and I may die. Yeah, and you know this thought, because you know we can really worry about things that are not happening and that are not happening at all. But this mind creates stories that are just insane. However, if we see someone talking to us and say, look, in 1 year I may die of cancer, and I ask you, are you having cancer right now? No. Like you would just forget about this right away. But if it's our thought, and it's us concerned, it's concerning us, we make like the biggest story out of this. We may go to 3 doctors, and check, no, I should really make sure. But that's the point. It's like the nature of the self-centeredness is also that we are always reacting to things that are not happening. Like if you really see it, it's just insane. But as I said, because it has such a power, because we identify as something that we're not. So yeah, that's one of the things. So as I said, the body-mind doesn't need anything. The body, as I said, it needs a chair to sit on, and that's the biggest relief for the body. That's all it needs. It goes out to eat, to drink, and it speaks, and that's it. Like for some reason, we have this idea that that the body needs some kind of, I don't know, breakthrough or transformation or something. The funny thing though is, once something happens, like maybe a breakthrough or something, you can have the body transforms like completely. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying what we're trying to do usually is we're trying to transform this, like we're trying to have the objective or the goal of transforming this body, of being enlightened and always looking nice and impress others. But that's not the right way. But what I'm saying is, I think when we see actually the insanity of the system, what's happening, if we see it, we can be separate from it. Then we don't try to become the formless as the form anymore, but we realize we are the formless. And then what happens is, all those transformations are happening by grace or by whatever. But that's the beauty of it, I think, yeah, that's the thing. So if you ask somebody, there are people or beings out there, that are transformed in a way, that are sort of shining, and that's beautiful. But I think if we try to become, that's the thing, we try usually to become, as in this analogy, as the parasite, we try to become this amazing being, not knowing that we are already what we're looking for, the sentence. What's looking is what we're looking for. I think that's immensely important in this relation, because when we start, the starting point is all that matters, I think, when we start already, I think it doesn't matter what you do at the end of the day if you understand the starting point. We usually start, Ramana Maharshi, one of the greatest guys in this field as well, he said something like, about the starting point. So what we usually think is, we think we are this body, and we think the body comes first, and then our being, but it's actually the other way around. Like what we are is always there, and then the body is something that comes as a thought. The body, if you really look at it, it's nothing else than a thought. You can also, of course, it's perceivable, it's an object and so on as well, but it's nothing else. So what we walk around in the world assuming that this comes first and then everything else, but it's not like this. As I said last time, this thing here is part of all of this. So I could also always walk around and identify with this because I can see it many times or whatever. But so anyway, this Ramana Maharshi said, presupposing the existence of a non-existing thing. That's what we're doing all the time. So we presuppose, it means what I just said. We think that this body and the thoughts are there, and the funny thing is, we think that consciousness is in this body. It's a function of the brain or in this body, which if you listen to Ramana Maharshi, for instance, it's an insane idea. So we think, presupposing the non-existence, presupposing the existence of a non-existing thing. So we presuppose the existence of a non-existing thing. So meaning, obviously it exists on some level, but it doesn't have an entity on its own. So presupposing the existence of a non-existing thing, and then looking for salvation for it through self-improvement or whatever. The self-improvement now in this analogy, what we're talking about, is exactly that. It's the improvement not of what we are, because that doesn't need any improvement, but it's the improvement of the parasite. So the parasite the presupposing is basically not taking us for ourselves, but as the parasite of a non-existing thing. The parasite is non-existing because we're not that. Then what we do is, that's the insane sister, right? Then we do is we identify as the parasite, then we look for salvation for this, and we always look for happiness and satisfaction outside events. We need people for that, we need many things. It's very exhausting, it's very complex. And then, how can that system, what we just did, how can being identified as the parasite bring us salvation? Isn't it that actually this salvation is making this whole thing, actually bringing it to life, you know? That's exactly the point. So yeah, that's basically it. So Ramana Maharshi was saying that, and you know, one of those things here is, you know, I think it's very, in my view, it's very important to paint that picture of what's happening, what we not are, like what we are not. Because you know what I'm saying, you could also think, oh my God, this sounds so negative, you know, but this is like, but it's not. It's like, I think when we see that this is happening, what happens is this background, what's usually in the background, our being, our awareness, our consciousness, it has a chance to come to the forefront. And then what happens is everything is fine at any time. Like, you know, but usually what happens is this whole other story that I was just talking about is usually in the forefront, and then life is busy and we get tired and you know, we think about tomorrow and we have to do this and we have to do this, we have to do so many things. And once I have this job, once I learn this language, you know, once I look, it's amazing. We're putting so much seriousness and so much, I don't know, yeah, so much seriousness and so much effort into making things happen outside that we're so busy forgetting this whole background that we always are. And that's exactly the point, that we can only rest, like, you know, rest in this background, in this energy what we are, when we're not so blinded or busy by all this other stuff going on. And that's the point. And then, you know, what I said about, you know, meditation, spirituality, about a transformation of the body, of the mind, this is all happening by itself. We don't have to do anything for that. But yeah, you know, but if we're so busy trying to become something as the parasite, then, you know, that's it. And that's why at the end of the day, we always talk about the same thing, but I think it's very crucial to talk about that because it's so, like, it's so obvious that we don't see it. If we, for instance, like, just one little thing is like, you know, what happens when you relax? Like, when you just relax, you feel good automatically. Like, you breathe a few times, you just sit in silence. Every human being feels good after that. Like, okay, if you went through some dramas or something, maybe not immediately, but usually every person who hasn't had any dramas or anything, you feel good because you let go. Meaning letting go is, that's it, that's where you are. You don't have to do anything. But when we're like this and this kind of energy and we have to do this, we don't feel so well. Maybe we achieve something and then we're happy for a little bit, but it's exhausting, it's always on. And you know, the funny thing is that this self-centeredness or selfing always needs an activity. Like, peace or silence is like the enemy of this, because it doesn't have an existence in itself. That's the funny thing. You know, what we take ourselves to be, it does not have an existence in its own. So that's why it needs constant activities, it needs constant thought. That's why we worry about the future, we worry about the past. It has constant things, it constantly needs to do something, it constantly needs to go out and do something. So seeing that, you know, seeing that as what we are, and not just like, you know, it's not a higher self, it's us, like, that's it. It's us, so it's not a higher self. What we are, not true, not like actually, or if one day or something, now, like what we are, each one of us. You know, it's not like you're not sitting here that one day, in 3 weeks you're gonna have enlightenment, or in 10 years. It's not like through surf for an elite. Like, that's it. You have all arrived, done. But the thing is, as I said, we oversee it easily. It's almost like we're dreaming and we're forgetting about that we're dreaming, you know? Like, let's say, for instance, like, look, you could now say, but look, I have so many problems. Like, look, this is not working, this is not working. But imagine you're dreaming at night, I don't know, something bad happens in the dream, I don't know, you get injured or somebody dies, somebody who you love in the dream, and then you wake up, you're like, oh wow, I'm still here, everything is still fine. What, like, how much, like what kind of solution do you need? Do you need to go to a psychologist? Do you need to fix things? No, because when you were in the dream, you felt like you were the action figure in the dream and you needed a solution. But then you woke up and you realized it was just a dream, and that's how it is here. Like 100%. Like this, all of this stuff in the form is a dream. It's dreaming. There's nobody here. Like it's literally like that. And the solution for this, if you think you have any problems here, then you're making this up, right? Like you're making this up in the dream. It may feel as if there's a problem. It may feel as if I am identified with this body and mind. It may feel like this, as if. But the important word here is it seem. It may seem. It's never actually happening. Like nothing is ever actually happening. Isn't it like, you know, we go on, I don't know, vacation. I was in Peru, I don't know, 4 weeks ago. It feels like I was never there. Like, you know, it's like this. Things just pass by. I was traveling, I don't know, to so many countries around the world. I was doing so many different things. It feels like it's all like it never actually happened. It's almost like a dream, right? You have some dreams you forget right away. Some dreams I wake up, I don't know, last week I had a dream. I experienced amazing things. I woke up, it still felt like this dream was real, you know? So it's like so many moving images and happening, but you know, we're making up so many things in our mind that are not happening, and we're reacting to this instead of just seeing what's happening. And you know, the most beautiful part is that things are just happening, right? It's like in a dream. You know, how worried would you be? Like, you know, if I tell you tonight you're gonna have a dream tonight, how worried would you be unless you have like the worst dream and that actually affects this body as well? Like, you know, that I don't know, tonight I'm gonna fall off from a building and I die in a dream. How concerned would I be if I know it's a dream? Like, you see? And that's exactly the point. Like we take, like, you know, imagine, so if we project the self-centeredness onto this example with a dream, you will be like, oh my God, shit, I can't be here right now. I have to think about, in this dream I'm gonna die. Like, you know, I have a feeling I'm gonna die or something bad is gonna happen to me. Hey, I'm busy, sorry, I cannot listen, I cannot pay attention, I cannot be here right now. That's what's happening every day, all day with us. Like really, we forget that, you know, we forget that we're like awake, like we forget it completely. We're so obsessed with something that's actually not happening, that we forget completely what's actually happening right now. Like what's happening, you know? And as I said, like, you know, and that's also, I think it's very important because there's this thing, this voice in the head saying, oh, but come on, that's like some kind of hippie or some esoteric stuff, but don't you feel like we're here? That's like, you know, this is part of the parasite. You know, like the parasite is sort of, hey, what are you doing? Come back. You know, you're here. And you're like, oh yeah, my mom thinks like this as well. She would think like, you know, my friends as well, my colleagues, and the whole world is like this because of media, you know, and we're like this. That's sort of, you know, a natural reflection. Like if you hear, you know, that's the thing, if you hear thoughts like this in your own mind, and that's the thing, it's not your own mind, it's thoughts. Like those thoughts, if you look at, I don't know, people here in the room or anyone out there, we all have the same thoughts, you know, depending on where we are and which frequencies we are, but we all pick up the same thoughts. It's not like we're producing them, but we pick up, depending if we're in a great mood, if we're in love, of course we pick up, the whole world is amazing, you know, we're gonna walk around or like, whatever, you know, you're like tired and super happy, you know, you're like relaxed and, you know, you see the good things and whatever. Someone is super stressed and they see all the, I don't know, you know, my aunt, she's whatever, 84, and she had, like, in the World War II, she always had to go to bunkers. She's scared whenever there's some airplane up there or something, you know, so it's like that, no? It's like whatever sort of, in whatever frequency or whatever we are in this body, we pick it up, but that's, you know, that's the point, is that all of this is just happening, like, you know, like in the example of the sky and the clouds. So all of this, what's happening here, feelings, thoughts, it's just passing by. It's just coming and going, coming and going. If we identify as the cloud, we have the most horrible time. If we understand, and that's the beauty as well, doesn't matter what happened in our lives, we are not marked by any cloud, not by any feeling, not by anything we have ever done. And the beauty is, it won't ever happen. So we're like the sky. Have you ever seen in the sky that somebody took out a piece of the sky? That an airplane was like, a rocket was going into the sky and it took out some, I don't know, something, or it left a mark in the sky. No, it doesn't. And that's what we are. Like nothing ever touches us at all. And the beauty is that we don't have to look for happiness outside, but we are that shines. We are like the sun, we are like shining. It's so obvious, right? But we forget about it because we're so busy with something that's actually not happening. And that's why I'm saying, the title of this talk today was that the body and the mind or the thoughts doesn't need enlightenment, because it's that which shines, like not the body mind, but we are that shines. If we try to become enlightened or improving us as the parasite, it's an endless story and it won't ever work. But the funny thing is that, and that's, as I said, that's what we're doing every day, every single time, because of our starting point, and that's so insane. If you really look at what's happening, that's why I think it's hilarious. If you see this, and if you observe the people around you, or if you even observe yourself sometimes, because it's patterns that just happen anyway. It's so beautiful to see that in the moment, because only then, when you see it's a pattern, you realize it's not you, and then it's like a dream. Then it's like things are happening. And they're happening, and that's it. And you give it, you are there to give it space. It's not like a denial. It's not a denial at all. It's actually the opposite. I think the whole self-centeredness is a denial of everything that's happening. But this is like a full acceptance. It's like beyond accepting. It's a full tolerance. It's a beyond tolerating. It's just, you don't interfere with what's happening. There's something going on, some cosmic show, some cosmic jokes. There's wars, there's, I don't know, there are crazy politicians, there are beautiful moments, there's up and down, and there's the whole world of duality, right? Good and bad. It's always like everything has a flip side in a way. But then there's that which we are, what's looking is what we're looking for, which is not which is not part of this duality. And that's the good message, The bad message is if we're identified, if we hear this message even as this body-mind, it's like, it's not a good message, right? Because it's sort of saying, hey, it doesn't have any significance, Like, you cannot be, like, we try to be proud, we try to be special, all this stuff. But, we don't need that, because there's something much, much bigger, which doesn't need any of this. And that's, at the end of the day, what does it do, all of this? We go through life with much more lightheartedness. We're able to connect with people on a whole different level. We don't worry about the future. We don't regret the past. Like, life is just easier as this action figure, So it has an impact, obviously, on this, action figure. If there was a video game, you would just play, like, you would be fully involved in the game. But then when the game is over, you drink a coffee, that's it. You don't go on and think about, oh my God, that's it. You just let go, boom. And if somebody calls you idiot on the streets, you hear it, maybe you think, was this maybe, I don't know, was I acting as it? No? Okay, done. You walk into a room, do you need to impress everyone? No, you don't have to impress everyone. I don't know, life is just going on, and that's the thing. This whole background that I was saying is moving into the foreground, and then it feels almost as if everything is just floating, And this, if you really look, I find it also fascinating. When we look out, we usually assume as a pre-assumption that things are firm. Like, because we touch a table, we think, oh yeah, that's firm and stuff. But if you really look, there's this thing. Okay, let's do like one little thing. So, look, okay, my side is sort of like this, right? And anything else back there, if you ask me for my direct experience of what's back there, there's nothing. I could say now, because I walked in here, I don't know, 45 minutes ago, I know there's a white wall. But that, and that's important, I think, that is just a thought or a pre-assumption or like whatever. It's a thought, right? It's not my direct experience right now. Like with my 5 senses, it's not my direct experience. So yeah, that's basically like a very important point, because if we walk around through life with this innocence of experiencing, using our direct experience and being there and like, basically being present with the direct experience, it will change our lives completely, because we're then not reacting to what's not happening, and that changes everything. Because if you're like, if we constantly do that, we assume things constantly. We think this guy has done this to us in the past, so we cannot be nice to him. If she invited me to this party, so then I should also be nice to her. It's like this, like also constantly go on. But if we rely on what's happening, what we're perceiving with our 5 senses, that's enough. There's not much more we have to do. And then what happens is, this background comes in the foreground, our joy, like it's really pure joy, but you cannot talk about it. You cannot take this as this body-mind, because it's like the joy that this body-mind can experience versus the joy that we are, it's like nothing. It's not even worth talking about it. But there's a whole other joy, a peace. There's a peace, like imagine you have 50 massages, you go 3 days into some kind of spa. It's not comparable to that peace that we are, because it's like beyond this wall. That's the whole point, right? It's like that. So yeah, that's basically it I want to say. So now we can open for discussion or questions.
Yeah. So what you say is that we are basically all kind of controlled by this parasite, our body, our mind, and the actual being is something beyond this, which is kind of taken over and kind of asleep, yeah? That's what I understood, yeah? And you're talking to us, you want to wake us up, you want to make us aware of that this is only the parasite, this is only an illusion of what we identify with. That's what I understood, is that right?
I would put it differently. I want to do anything.
No,
like,
that's not the point.
Yeah, all I want to do, like look, as I said, my point is, like, I want to point out at some pattern that we are not, basically. But yeah, in a way, it's right.
So, but what I feel is that your parasite talks to my parasite. Yeah, even though if I assume that all you say is exactly as it is, but your parasite talks to my parasite and tries to awake something you can't really talk to, because you're talking to my body, to my mind, and I perceive you with my body and my mind, with my ears, with my 5 senses, with your mouth. So it's not a critique or anything. Yeah, I just wonder if you want to wake up my actual being, wouldn't you have to use some other channel than talking to my parasite? That's the question.
So it's a good point. So look, I think there's many ways, but I like to look at two things here. One way is that there's that something, or the message or you talk to a person, like, let's say in your words, the parasite, about the ultimate reality. Yeah, you could do that. You could talk to the person, to the parasite in this example, about what you are, or about, I don't know, Buddha nature, or about something like this. That happens most of the time, and that's like, for instance, if you go to, I don't know, a yoga studio, they would say, hey, yeah, the starting point is the parasite, you're your body, and when you practice enough and you do a lot of retreats, at some point, maybe you can come very close to this thing. But what we are doing here, that's at least the intention, is that we're talking the messages to the Buddha nature about you. You see? So, because, look, when I look around, and that's the thing, and look, that's also the beauty, I think. When I look around, there's only Buddha nature. I call it Buddha nature. I'm not a Buddhist, but or whatever, you call it sunshine or you call it God, whatever you want to call it, right? There's only this, there's nothing else. So I'm talking to Buddha nature about you. Showing, like saying to this Buddha nature, look, maybe there's a forgetting of this parasite. Like, yeah, sort of, look at it. I invite you to look at it and don't try to wake up. And then on the other hand, if, like, look, that's the other thing. Another pattern of this self-centeredness is also that when this thing feels it's separate from everything else, it projects automatically that this is also separate from everything else. And then exactly that happens is there's a communication. Starting point is I'm the parasite or I'm this body-mind and there's all other body-minds. It's like I said earlier, when we are in love, like really in love, all we see, the whole world is beautiful, everything. It doesn't matter. The neighbor I yelled at yesterday is all of a sudden like enlightened or whatever, It changes so much. So it's like that, no? So even if we see this, if we see that maybe in this whole discussion, it's a discussion between parasites that we're sitting here, that's also fine, if you perceive it like this, but I think it has to do also with, what we perceive. But I said, the intention is to talk to the Buddha, not in you, but to talk to the Buddha nature, or to talk to the mind or whatever, about these things, that's it. Because I feel like if we speak to the person, to the non-existing person, about the Buddha nature, then what happens is, then we try to become that Buddha nature as that parasite or as that person.
I think that's brilliant what you say. I can see the turning point. Like there is something brilliant in there. On the other hand, his good question made me also think today about the way I am approaching some topics. Like when I speak about the topic, people that want to leave the corporate world. So then my question is also like something on these lines. Like, should I say how difficult it was for me, or that will invite some more negativity, or will it help? Or should I focus on downloading that? Like it's really interesting, the topic. But I can sense there is some more puzzle piece, which can be truly beneficial. Something like what he said and what you say, but I don't get fully. Maybe you can go further with it. What you say, like, I don't want to take the Buddha nature and put it into you, because then I take the Buddha and speak to the person. Please go more into this direction. I feel something really interesting for me on this.
So, like, it's what I sometimes call the form and the formless, right? So let's say usually we identify with the form, right? So form meaning the body, the mind, everything that's perceivable. Everything, like even thoughts, like in a way. So we identify with that. And then what happens is, we try, and here in this example is what we are is not in the form, it's the formless. So the formless meaning, so what we try to do is, in everything we do here, we try to become the formless as the form, which can never happen, because it's a different thing, and that's for me one of the biggest fallacies. Like you see some kind of spiritual people, as I said, I don't want to judge spirituality in general, but there are certain people, and the tendency is very big, that you walk into a yoga lounge or you walk to some spiritual circle, that you walk in and they walk around and like, oh, I'm one, and as I said, for me, that's a very strong sign to see that they're trying to become, in this example as the parasite, they're trying to become a better parasite. They're trying, but
Yeah.
the problem is it can never go over the threshold. You know, you can do yoga for 20 years, you can meditate for 20 years, and I'm not saying per se that this is not good, but as if you think you are a meditator in the form, you can never go beyond the threshold. You can become more calm, you can have a stronger body, you can be more aware. It's beautiful as well, you know. But I think if you have this starting point, you can never go beyond the threshold, you know, because what we do is we try to become the formless as the form, but we are already the formless, you see. We cannot become what we already are, that's the point.
I find this point important as well. I would appreciate if you could summarize, recap what he said, because his message did not arrive.
Or maybe you can summarize or restate it, maybe in different words.
What I said is,
Yeah,
from what I experience is, and I'm not at all trying to prove that anything is wrong or right here, I just say what I experience. Maybe my parasite is I'm very much identified with my parasite probably. And so it's exactly as you said, everything I perceive here, I perceive through my parasite. And I project this obviously to you, so I see a parasite talking to me then too. And you're using, from what I can perceive, the parasite senses and ways to communicate. And that's what reaches me. And I want to believe that there is something beyond this. And I wonder how this can be addressed. This my beyond, my being, as he says, which is maybe very asleep. How can that be woken up? I feel that by talking to my parasite, it's not waking up, and that also makes sense because this parasite doesn't want it to wake up, because that's how the parasite lives, yeah. And so I was just asking if there is maybe another way of talking to me to make me awake, to make me aware, than talking to my parasite.
Yeah, so so basically, I think from my experience, I think the one thing we can do is to investigate. There's the question, what sometimes helps is the question, who am I? So, for instance, I don't know, you do something, and it's not a theoretical thing, you do something, and then, I don't know, let's say an emotion of anger comes, and then you say, who is angry? Is it me? Who is angry? You just ask the question. And then this helps sometimes, to create a distance between what's happening, and I'm fully in this anger, and to sort of have a distance. That's one way. But I think from my experience, it's just, there's countless ways, obviously, but for me, what has worked the most is to see what we're not. And what we're not is everything here. And when this question comes that you have, it's a very good question, because I think it's one of the things that we all caught up in at some point, or always. Because, for instance, I give you another example is when we hear this message, when we hear a message of I'm not this body as the body, it doesn't make any sense, because if I hear this message as the body, then I'm like, that's bullshit, it doesn't work. I am this body, so you cannot say I'm not this body. But if we hear the message from our true nature, I'm not this body, it doesn't make sense either, because obviously I'm not this body, obviously, I don't need to hear this or reinstate it. But in this case, as I said, what helps me is investigating. You hear this pattern, how this pattern looks, and you just look around and see it for yourself. Because What doesn't work is to listen to me and think, wow, now I have a new religion. That's the worst, right? So I'm also not encouraging to listen to me or read a book and you go to church or whatever. But I think one of the best tools that we all have is to question the status quo and to question things that we have always taken for granted. Is that easy? Probably not so easy, because it goes like this, you know. As I said, this claiming that the self-centeredness has is like almost imagine like, you know, like a duel like in the old Western times, you know. It's like this fast, but the thing is, it has to come, and you know what's before that is what you are. So it's very fast, but it never stands a chance against you because you already wanted that thing, you know. But as I said, it's not like, you know, nobody can give you a book and say read this and it's all done, or like, you know, that's the whole point, because you know, I think it's repetition here helps, you know, having some moments of silence and just looking, just being sort of awake. But that's the most beautiful part for me that helped a lot, you know, is because I was like many years into this, and I was always trying exactly that. I was trying to become whatever as the parasite. But once I saw it, that this is a parasite, this is like, I call it parasite, it sounds negative, but it does something to us. But if I see that the self-centeredness is not me, you can see it and you're like, wow, it's a foreign object. So, you know, it doesn't change anything like on surface, but it changes your whole life at the same time. Because you don't invest energy in something anymore that you're not, you know? So yeah, but as I said, there's not this one solution. Maybe you go to someone and he says, yeah, you have to do A, B, C, and then you get there, but I don't think that works. So does it help you to understand better what his point was?
Yes. A little better.
You wanted to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to say that maybe some, let's call it experience that you have, or that thing that you see of our true nature, maybe by calling it fully parasite, the body-mind, it's like too much. Maybe we can honor the parasite, because by calling it fully parasite, it's like I can't get the whole of what you, like your true nature could be, that cannot get to a body. If we just say the body-mind is the parasite, you know what I mean? No?
I mean, like, you know, with the parasite, it's just an analogy. Like, I don't know, I think you were not there when I read the story, no? It's about the mushroom, how it reproduces?
No. Okay.
So should I, maybe, it's very short. And I think it's very interesting for everyone. Maybe it makes sense, because, you know, I'm not calling the body-mind a parasite. It's just...
No, what I mean is that this idea of parasite, let's say that we speak about, we zoom on a point like a fear. And you speak to me and you call it parasite. It will not help me to embrace that aspect of myself, which is the fear, because I already, when you say parasite, I feel like I have to kind of get rid of something, and somehow the person may have the illusion like somewhere is a parasite, I have to somehow
it's not like that.
And maybe we can't, because in the end, okay, the being inside all of us is already there, already done. And this I love about the speech. But anyhow, speak further,
okay,
because I feel something.
I'll read the story to you, But what you just said, I don't mean that. So you may not believe this, but there are plenty of examples in nature of how the parasite overrides the strongest instinct, self-preservation of the host. There's a mushroom from the cordyceps family that has a unique way of overcoming its handicap concerning reproduction. It has spores, and it's in a stationary position where it can deliver the spore where the spore is most likely to grow. So there's a mushroom, it's standing there, and it needs to reproduce with other mushrooms, so it cannot walk, right? Obviously. So it has spores that it puts out in the air, and then it sort of, if it's lucky, by the wind it's blown to the other, but the chances are very low, right? So that's what it goes on. Its degree of difficulty is extreme because it is basically relying on chance to succeed. What it does is the spore targets an ant, so a little ant, and burrows into the ant, checks into its brain and tells the ant where the mushroom wants to go. So it's like amazing, right? If you think about this. So the spore goes into the ant, it checks into the brain, and then through that it can sort of direct it through life. As soon as the ant arrives at the mushroom's destination, the spore kills the ant, and then a mushroom grows out of the ant's head. Yeah, that's happening in nature every day. Now the analogy. So if we were the ant in this story, in self-centeredness, we would have a whole narration about the trip of the spore after it took us over. So look, that's the point. So I call this parasite, or this guy also calls this parasite, because just to say that this is not you, but something other than you. That's all. So if you prefer the wording not parasite because it creates some kind of fear, you can say it's not you, it's something other than you. Okay? And then we would be claiming every one of the spore's intentions and actions coming through us as our own intentions and actions. So this thing is checked into the brain. It's going to the next mushrooms. If somebody came and asked, hey, where are you going? Like, you're my friend, where all of a sudden you're going or whatever, it would be like, oh, I'm in a rush, I have to go, I can't talk now, And we would explain this as us. So, we would not think we are checked in by a parasite. We would think, no, I'm busy now, I have to go. Yeah. It's sort of the energies that come to us, and we say, no, that's how it is. And it's something other than us. It's not us, it's other than us. And that's important here. So that's basically a start. So it's important to understand, for instance, when we take the example of thoughts, yeah? So we usually, just because it's happening, here, we sort of perceive thoughts here, just because that's happening, we automatically think or take those as ours. We think they are from us or about us. And that's why we take them so seriously. I don't know if you were there when we were saying, but if John has some worries about, that his girlfriend is going to leave him, that he doesn't have any ground for it, there's no reason to worry, he's been with her for 3 years, but he's so worried that his girlfriend is going to leave him, we would just hear that and be like, that's ridiculous. It's not, it doesn't bother us at all because it's John. But if it's us, it's happening in our thoughts, and my girlfriend is going to leave me in, next week probably, I can be so into this just because I take it for myself, for my thoughts. And then, and that's how we walk around, most of the time. Because the problem is not the thoughts at all. But the problem is that we take them as our thoughts and about us. So that's sort of, the friction that it has. That the power, it can have a lot of power over us. But when we realize, and that's the beauty, when you realize, and thoughts, they have the power to make our day or to destroy our day. They really have the power. Some people, you look at them, they worry, and they ask them what happened. Oh, nothing, I just think I'm going to have a really bad week next week, So they have the power to destroy a day. But my point is, when, the solution is not to try to calm the mind down, the parasite in this example, but to see that this is not us. And that brings all the relief that is ever possible. It's a completely different start.
Is it in a way, in a sense, that we try to stop playing voodoo with ourselves by playing voodoo with ourselves by getting into this improvement spiral?
I'll put it differently.
So we feel we are not enough, not the person we want to be or so. So because someone is playing voodoo with others, so or something bad happened to others, so we in a sense try to stop playing voodoo with us.
But that's also, okay, sorry that I get in here, but this is very important. Nobody's playing voodoo with us. Like, you know, but no, it's very important because I can hear that. Like, nothing is happening to us. Nothing. Like, look, like, because I'm just going in here because it's like nothing, like, you know, even if what you're saying, nothing, like, it's a dream. It's like in a dream. Like, that's it. Like, you know, don't make like a problem out of this. Like, you know, I'm just like throwing in this message and that's it. There's no somebody's playing voodoo with you or this. It's not happening.
There is nothing outside of you, so nobody's playing with you.
You know, that's the thing. If that like, you know, it's not easy to separate or to see that all of this that's happening, it doesn't matter. Like, it's not that it doesn't matter. It's like it doesn't have any significance. It's not like, you know, when you hear this message, you can either say, oh wow, but I have to do this. It's like going again into this thing of, oh, I have to do something, you know? You don't have to do anything. Because what can you do? You're already whatever you are. You see? It's important, like, you know, I think it's very important to be very clear about this. Because it's not something that you have to do, like, because, you know, what happens is, because this is so obvious, and our identification with this has been so strong, that our starting point is always from this, you know?
And you say there's nothing we need to change, yeah, because it's all good already. But what you say is, and that makes more sense to me, one thing needs to change, and that is our identification. Because when we are so identified, or I am so identified with my body and mind, and obviously this causes some bad feelings or whatever, yeah? This self-identification needs to change to reach this awareness and the positive impacts that you mentioned. So there is something that needs to change.
I don't think that like, even that doesn't need to change. Like, look, there's a difference, and it's not a wording thing. It's like, look, nothing has to change. And look, even this, like, look, you could now say, oh yeah, it's bad, it's a negative thing that this is happening, but even this, and that's important, is part of whatever is happening, you know? So if you think this has to change, then, like, I'm telling you, it doesn't have to change at all, because that's the cosmic play in a way. Even
this is paradox to me.
Even this forgetting is cosmic.
Is good.
Yeah, but you say I am probably very identified with my body and mind, and you say nothing needs to change, and exactly this is what could be changed. What I don't want to say need or should be changed, but it could be changed, and if the change happened, something would happen. Yeah? And you say nothing needs to happen, and this.
I said it's a bad message for us
Yeah?
as the body-mind, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. Like, yeah, as you say, you know, this is really a bad message for, like, to the body-mind. This is really a bad message, because it's almost saying you're insignificant, you're worthless. You know, there's nothing you can do.
So tell me, what is identified with my body and mind?
Exactly. What is it? What do you think?
No, that's what I'm asking you.
Like, the body-mind is identified as the body-mind.
Which would be right, because it is body and mind.
Then there is a forgetting of what you are, and in that forgetting of what you are, this body-mind identification, like, look,
Body and mind can be
reality,
identified with body and mind,
yeah,
all fine.
yeah, reality, what you are, is lending its reality to the body-mind, and the body-mind, from that point of view, is pretending to have a reality on its own. And that happens not as a real thing, but it happens from moment to moment.
I invite you to just kind of sit with this paradox, because that's so many times when there's a paradox, you are just, you are invited to kind of transcend where you perceive some kind of a limitation or duality. So don't try to understand it, just maybe acknowledge that there is a paradox, and that will lead you, to understanding what's actually going on.
Exactly. Like, I said last time, this whole discussion, it's not about trying to understand something and like think like this, it's more like this. And as I said, life in general is super paradox, and like it's very important to understand that what I'm saying, like this message here from me, is not all-inclusive theory, because what happens is, it happens to me as well. When I heard this, I was like suspicious, it's too good to be true. And then you find like loopholes in the theory, and I'm like, look, I got it. But that's not you. That's the reaction of our mind, because if we hear something that's too good to be true, we try to find a loophole, and then I got it. See, the theory is not perfect. You see, and as I said, it's not you or you. It's just something that we do, and as he said, it's exactly like that. You listen to the message. If something resonates with you, and if some paradox comes, that's great, because that means maybe some old worldview is sort of collapsing, or something is happening. That's the best thing. Sit with that paradox. Like, go out with this paradox and observe it in your own life. What's happening? Don't believe me. I don't have a theory. I don't know anything. But all I do is I throw out a message, and if it resonates, great. If not, also great. I'm not there to be a missionary or something. But yeah, that's exactly it. I think the way my biggest things were always when a worldview collapsed that I had, or when some paradox came up. That's the best. But I think there's this beautiful part in the one of the best books I know. It's Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. It's one of the best books. Have you read it?
Long time ago.
There's this part where it's basically about the childhood of Buddha in a way, right? And there's this part where he meets like an enlightened person. Like he hears, that there's this enlightened person going through the woods, and he's gonna speak and everything, right? So, I don't know, so many people follow him after, like they hear him speak, and then they become a monk and follow him. So Siddhartha, he hears him speak, and he says, I have never seen anybody like you, how you speak, and how you shine, and your presence and everything. Like, it's perfect. It's like, it cannot get better. However, at the same time, I'm not going to follow you, because I know that, and he said, I've never heard also like this theory or the story he was telling, I never heard a better one. But he knows it's just a theory, and you could find some imperfections of it, obviously, because it's a theory, or he's trying to explain something in words that cannot be explained. But he said, I'm not going to follow you, because whatever you experienced in that very moment when you were sitting under this tree and you had your enlightenment, you are not able to transmit that to anyone, because everyone has to find it for themselves in a way. Otherwise, I could, I don't know, Ramana Maharshi would be sitting there and would sell enlightenment, right? Because it doesn't work. So he was saying that, and I find it very beautiful, because as I said, you find like the worst thing is to in this regard, to go after, like to listen to a theory, to take it, not questioning it, and say that's how it is. The worst thing is you have an old worldview, you come into some community, and they say, we have the ultimate worldview. If you follow us, if you believe us, sign here, give us your money or whatever, even if you don't have to do that. But it's just from one belief to another belief. But that's not the message at all. The message is, forget what you know and question with whatever you have, question that. And what I do is entertain it as a possibility in your life. See, can it be true for me in my life? Yes. Go further into it? No, leave it, it's like that. But as I said, yeah, it's important to understand also as what you hear.
But I get what you say. But isn't that just my mind
You shouldn't
playing
with
with itself, playing around, but can't find the answer, because the answer is not there. So why should I even bother my mind, or why should my mind even bother with playing around with some ideas if the answer is just not there? So doesn't it have to be a totally different way? Obviously some kind of way of experiencing this, not by understanding it, or not by hearing it, or not by thinking about it, but some other way.
So where's this question coming from?
Yeah, from my mind, definitely.
So yeah, let it be, you
Not
know?
necessarily from your mind.
I'm pretty sure.
Convinced.
It is more a logic for me that, and that's not a bad thing, I would say, but still this logic tells me that if I want to experience this other thing, which almost by definition cannot be grabbed by the mind, the way to experience it needs to be somehow outside of any mind games.
True.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Well, what he's presenting is a door, which is very important. You need other doors as well. Like what he says is a door. Just look at the parasite. The other door is the fact that you are looking, that you are observing. And no, when we were not born as body, as mind and mind. We were taught to be body and mind. Is it good?
I said, like, look, like, don't try to get this, right? Because you said, I get this, but don't try to get it. It's like, if you've realized that this is sort of, you know, you're trying to get something, or trying to understand it, see that you're trying to understand it, and then let it be like this, you know? That would be my thing. I said, you know, yeah, it's like, if you have two energies, like this or like this, like, you can maybe approach, like, if you're in sports, but also I think very limited, in some situations in sports, or when you do a driver's license or something, it helps to be focused like this and have this kind of energy, which is good in those situations. But when it comes to this, from my experience, you see and learn it like this. It's like a surrender, it's like being open, it's like, yeah, because we don't grasp it with what we usually use, you know? There's something else happening, and yeah, we trust that in a way, you know? What time is it, do you know?
No idea.
20 minutes to 9.
Okay, we have one or two more questions or comments or anything.
I have a thing. I'm thinking about the parasite and the whole nature of the parasites in this nature. First of all, like the parasite usually makes you feel better when it infects you. The point is not to kill you or make you worse.
Exactly.
It just live from you. So maybe when you say, like, when you relax and feel better, this is the parasite. Just maybe.
Maybe.
Just,
it could be.
yeah, idea. So you don't know. Like I will give an example with the parasites which live on the human skin. You are immediately infected when you are born from everyone else. So you're born with this one. In the very seconds when someone touches you, you're infected. So you don't know your natural state without the parasite. So maybe
I think you can even take this one step further, because if I remember correctly, in the human body there are way more cells that are not human than the ones that actually contain human DNA.
This is my point. So, we don't know if the parasite make us feel stress and just hurry in the world and make, you know, it may be the parasite which makes you relax. Maybe the parasite is which makes you meditate.
And that's a very good point. You know why? Because no, but that's a very good point. Because, you know, that's exactly the pattern of the self-centeredness. Because what it does, it claims everything as itself, and that's why it can be very dangerous. That's why in spirituality you have so many victims that fall into this. That they think, now I finally have salvation. And then they go into weird things, you know, like.
From my point of view, look like parasite, like they're affected from something and they believe it blindly.
Exactly.
And I'm like, okay, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I have another parasite which live in the cats and affect mice,
Mice.
rats, and humans. And this is why you heard for so much ladies with the cats, because they actually make rats and humans, women to be more likable to the cats. They like more cats, and like that's the point. Like the parasite make the rat go back to the cat eat the rat, and
Exactly.
it reproduces itself.
I heard that as well. Yeah.
So
Like there's something in the rat's stomach that the rat something in the cat's stomach that the rats like.
they just like cats, which
Yeah.
is crazy. That's a mouse and that's a cat. I mean, it's like, you know, it's crazy.
But as you said, you know, I think one of the most important tools that we have as well is to question the status quo. You know, the funny thing is, it's not easy to question something that's always there, as you say. Like, for instance, the same with the fish in the water, right? How can the fish question the water when it's always been there since birth, you know? But that's the whole point. Or like, you know, the analogy that I was saying last time in the book, you know, from Plato. It's like, you know, you cannot go to this person who is fully into this reality to tell them, no, that's not reality. You know, it's like to become aware of something we're not aware. You know, that's sort of the art of living in a way. Any other questions? Or?
Just a short remark on today's session. I felt extremely relieving energy flow today. It was really peaceful for me.
Good.
Okay.
So,
Do you want to know today?
So what did you smoke?
We can make it violent. Just say the word.
Can you sell us this stuff as well? Can you sell us this stuff as well?
I have a thing about understanding, like you use logic for the thing, and when you meet a paradox, you can, like the logic doesn't survive the paradox. So you need to probably find a different way, accept the logic. Like,
Yeah,
you
or
know,
you can
like
see it the other way around.
you
yeah.
maybe just feel it. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's what
I don't know how
we
the
think,
things
yeah.
work. I'm just saying the logic doesn't survive the paradox.
That's a good sentence.
But always. So, you know.
Yeah, you know Eckhart Tolle?
Yeah.
So he has this one tool where you focus your consciousness. And so the idea is you just take a few deep breaths, you know, and then you just open up and relax and you feel wide awake, and then you just observe your mind. And you just look at your mind and you think, or you focus on what thought is going to come next. I mean, you know, there's a moment of stillness, and then at some point, oh, there's a thought. And so that tells you, you know, you have this capacity to just observe the mind and don't identify with it. So, yeah, and also at the same time, you know, we've talked about this a couple of times, how the body is, you know, in this constant state of, you know, falling apart and reassembling itself. You know, the cells are like dying and new cells are created. And so our body doesn't stay the same, you know, like within a few, I don't know how long it takes.
7 years.
7 years or something, you know, every single cell of your body is replaced. So, you know, that tells you from on this mind level, the body isn't even real, or the body is not me.
But look, like it's also what's very important is like, you know, I also have this thing. Whatever theory or belief you have, you will find proof for exactly that everywhere. Like, you know, for your theory. So you have theory A, belief B, whatever. Whatever belief or theory you have, you will find for this theory proof everywhere in whatever you do. And look, that's the beauty, but that's also
The curves.
Yep.
saying
The
something.
curse, definitely.
Maybe one last thing from my side. I know I'm exhausting today. Thanks for the patience here. Yeah, maybe I really have to make this experience, which I wasn't fortunate to have so far. But if you say, yeah, you can observe your mind, yeah, and this is more or less a proof that you are not your mind. For me, this is not 100% logical, yeah, because my eye can observe itself in the
do you
mirror.
realize
Yeah.
how you are still coming back to the logic?
Yep.
Yeah,
Always.
which I think is okay. Yeah, which is okay to me because you're telling me you can observe your thought and thereby you see that you are not your thought, and that is something you say, and I say that is not necessarily right. Yeah?
It's not logical.
Because you can have a self-reflection, so you can see yourself, and you don't have to leave your body and mind for this. So and I'm not saying that it is wrong. I just say what you say is maybe wrong, not what you mean is wrong. Yeah. So not that you get me wrong here. Yeah? But this is my struggle. Yeah. I hear things.
Stop struggling. It's no use.
Anyway, we'll take it
Take it to
over a drink.
the bar.
We take it
You
over a
still
drink.
use too much
You
logic.
hear things, go on. I was curious what you want to say. You hear things?
Yeah. I just said I hear things about a topic that I'm very interested in, but what I hear is not necessarily right, even though the person who wants to tell me something wants to give me a correct message, but with words that are not right, which do not need to be believed. Okay, let's take it to the bar. Sorry. Thanks for all the patience.
Thank you.